But thanks to the space what this thing actually has, we can just open it up. Yeah, we can open it up. No, we cannot open it up. Let's get a screwdriver. Wicked, bring forward. So what I wanted to say is that we can open it up, and we do have some room in the inside for putting in some storage capacity. I love the design of the Dells. I think I still need to clean it up a little bit. Also, we have the option for dual channel memory, and yeah, we do have a disk drive that we're not going to be actually using for emulation, but hey, it's an extra fun fact if you're going to be using some Windows gaming. And when you're going to be opening it up, you even have the option to put in a 2.5-inch drive. This can be an SSD or something else. So when it comes to mobility, there are a couple of options out there. It's of course really old school tech, so we do have some minor limitations. So let's see what kind of RAM it's using. Kingston. So let's see, 1 GB. So it's not going to be a lot. So I think this thing has like 2 or maybe 3 GB of memory in the inside. But for the basic emulation we wanted to do, it's going to be more than enough. So one of the things we can actually do is removing the drive, replacing it with something else. So this thing does come with a Scorpio Black and very fast drive, but I don't know, 1, 2, 3, how much space. Oh, there we go, 160 GB. So it's okay, but not enough. But let's talk about some modding options. So the first thing that we can actually do is get an SSD. It's going to be a very expensive thing to do, but you will have like fast loading times, and if you're going to be putting Batocera on, that will be very interesting. Another option we can do, so getting an external drive, so we can leave in, let's say, the Windows drive. So put on clean Windows, and you can actually have a dual boot situation. So plugging in the USB, we're having Batocera. That's what we're going to be doing today. So we have different kind of drives. You can like a POW keypad, or you can get yourself a Kinhank, or you can just make it yourself. You can actually reformat this, put some Batocera on it, and we're going to be using this thing purely as a retro emulation beast. So there's many different ways, but you know, you can also get yourself like a thumb drive you can plug in. So it's absolutely not the only downside to the thumb drive is going to be that we're only having old school USB ports like 2.0. So loading times will be a little bit of slower than normal. So the best options to go to is reformat or get a drive, slap it in and connect it with the internal part. So we have like a 100% full Batocera retro emulation machine. So let's press start and go into the settings, the main menu settings, system settings. And I keep pressing the wrong freaking button. So information over here. And with the information we can find some more details of the mini PC. And it is very slow at this point. So let's see, we're using a 2 TB drive at this point. But you can just see OpenGL is 2.1 Mesa. So this is a Pentium dual core CPU, the E5500 running on 2.80 GHz. And yeah, it's a dual core, so CPU number is 2. So there's a lot of information, but this is a quite old system. So when it comes to performance, I think we do have some very cool games that we can play, but upscaling is just out of the question. So when it comes to 8-bit stuff, this will run just fine on a mini PC like this. So we'll try a couple of systems to see how far we can push it and what we can actually play. But I just mainly want to focus on the higher end stuff like always, what I'm trying to do with these PCs. Think about Sega Dreamcast and Atomiswave, because those systems struggle mainly like higher resolution, internal rendering resolutions on those cheap game boxes. But even if you can play all the way up to N64, PlayStation 1, we have like crazy amount of games that we can actually play. Super beefcake, oh yeah, wow. So let's move into the Sega Saturn. I just wanted to check out how far we can push this mini PC. So I've been messing around with it for some time now, and I can tell you that I'm quite disappointed when it comes to the overall performance. You can see that it doesn't even hit the 50 frames per second. So when it comes to this older Dell Optiplex, it seems to be that it really struggles when it comes to playing some, let's say, more generation games. Then is the question, is this like maybe the barrier that we're having when going back to the old CPUs, that this is something you don't want to experience, that you don't want to buy these really old ones when it comes to dual core stuff, that it just general struggles with more emulation performance. So at that point, it makes no sense. But next up, let's see if we can get a different game to run. So G-Darius is another favorite of mine. However, you can see that it also struggles with this game, where it's not like completely unplayable. You can just actually see, particularly when you're going to be powering up sometimes, it will dip in frames per second. So it's quite disappointing to see that even with, let's say, the PC and Batocera, we do have limitations when it comes to this. We can switch between emulators, but I can tell you it doesn't have like a lot of effect on this. But let's move on to some Sega Dreamcast as other system to see how far and what we can actually play on this. PlayStation 1 is a system that can be played on many different PCs now. So it's kind of cool if you have this old Dell laying around and you can actually do some cool things with it. But if you're going to be looking into emulation performance, particularly now Sega Saturn where we tested out, I was quite disappointed. And it's unfortunate, nothing to do about it. But if you just want to build yourself a very cheap PlayStation emulator and you don't want to buy anything and just have an old PC like this laying around, you can just actually make a very cool machine out of it. However, I would not like try to upscale because then it's going to be struggling big time. So native resolution, this seems to be running just fine. But if you're trying to boot up some PlayStation 2 emulation, it's quite unfortunate that that is not possible and the system won't boot it up none of the single games that have been installed. So that is quite unfortunate. So PlayStation 2 is just a no-go. But let's check out some other old school games like the Tekken MAME games. They will not run on a device like a Gamebox, the Android ones with Emulation, but we do have the option to actually play them on a mini PC that is even that old. So if you want to build yourself an arcade machine with classic games, we do have the option to actually play some Tekken Tag MAME. But let's scroll through a couple of the games with a simple reason, because Tekken 2 is the most easiest one to emulate. Let's move on to some other versions. So let's do a quick test of the Tekken 3 game to see how that actually works out. So far everything seems to be running just fine like the Tekken 2 game. So there we don't have any problem whatsoever. And for the final test of the series, let's get into some Tekken Tag, and also this seems to be running just fine, so that is just great. So when it comes to Tekken MAME on native resolution, no rate, let's say filters, you can actually have an overall great performance. So let's say if you want to build yourself an arcade machine with all the original Tekken MAME games, you can actually do it on a very cheap PC like this, or an old one to begin with. Another game I love to try out is some Killer Instinct. I think the first system I ever played it on, the arcade version in emulation mode, was that we had the Xbox Classic where we could play this game. But also now with such a basic dual core, we can just play these games without any problem. I can still remember that a lot of these, let's say, PCs, I think it was family board things from China, had the same kind of specs and also had the option to actually play these games too. And of course, let's do a quick gameplay of the Killer Instinct 2. So we did see a minor hiccup in the beginning to 54 frames per second. However, if you're going to be looking into some MAME emulation, this is an absolutely great PC with amazing performance. And I think that is just the overall experience you will have with a very old mini PC. But it doesn't spoil the fun. There is so much that we can actually still play when it comes to this crazy, let's say, mini PC. Another thing I just wanted to check out later on is see if we can play some awesome games like Atomiswave. But in the end, if you're going to be looking into, let's say, some old school games, I'm really surprised. For example, having this awesome game Return Fire of the 3DO that doesn't run at all on the game box that we tested out, like the game stakes, etc., if it's even on there. But emulation performance, 60 frames per second, it's not like a miracle whatsoever, but it's kind of cool that we can actually play this. So I think for the 8-bit and 60-bit era, yeah, this is going to be absolutely a lot of fun. Yep, it's clear that when it comes to this particular game, you can see where we can just have not enough power, where some of the systems are playable, but some really struggle. Quite unfortunate because Dot & Blue is a kind of cool game. The medals look rip-off, but this is just freaking unplayable. But for example, N64, another system that struggles on those, let's say, game boxes. It's kind of funny to think about. It's like now we do have like game boxes that can run, let's say, an overall better performance when it comes to, let's say, Atomiswave. But getting into some N64, you can see that it is overall more playable than most game boxes that we've tested out. And yep, there are some cheap game sticks that can actually play N64. Hello? Okay, are you done? Okay, let's keep going. No idea where that came from, but we're going to be testing out another game soon just to see what is going on with that. But it's pushing the limits of this mini PC. This is a very cool mini PC to play a lot of old school games with, but the question remains, how much are you going to actually be playing with this and what kind of games? If you're going to be looking into some higher end stuff, yeah, you need to look for something else because there is so much out there that costs not like a lot of money nowadays that can have the option to play many different games. No idea why it doesn't do any hiccups whatsoever. Another test is going to be some GoldenEye James Bond. Let's see how much of a performance we're having over here. You can see the dips, the same that we had with Cruising USA. But getting into the game, we need a sniper. Oh yeah, we do have the PP7. Freaking Terminators. But gameplay wise, everything seems to be working just fine now. So that is one of the things that's kind of weird. And where we do have a lot of hit or misses when it comes to certain systems. Unfortunate, we did have some minor hiccups. Aiming on this thing is such a pain. There we go. Yeah. There we go, there we go. Yes. Okay, he goes. But this is a very good example how far you can actually push these mini PCs, where I can just say that this thing is way too old for having some overall good performance for higher end stuff. The Dell Optiplex is just a great device, and if you're going to be finding one in the wild for not a lot of money and you just want to play some old school games, I think it's going to be an absolutely amazing emulation machine. But if you're searching something for, let's say, a little bit of more high-end emulation, newer stuff, let's say the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and even trying to do some, let's say, upscaling, you should avoid this thing and spend a little bit more money. Thank you all for watching, and it will be great to see you in the next video.